Okay, hello everybody. Nice to see you for today. It's my pleasure to be with you in this session that we are going to speak about different items today. First, we are going to talk about the IELTS test and the content of this test and how is it important for all the seekers around the world to change their academic studies for upgraded level for master's degree or for even PhD degree. In addition to that, we're going to have the people who are seeking for immigrating for another items. Why the IELTS is important for these people, and in addition to that, what is the structure of the test, what is the content of the test, everything relating to the test item and structure too. In addition to that, we're talking to our items of the course of preparation for the IELTS test. And also, we're going to talk at the end of this presentation about a skill, an important skill that a lot of us are struggling for it, which is the item of speaking skill. So let's start with each other speaking about the items here for the first part. That's our introduction for the items. So first, who is the speaker? That's me with you. My name is Mr. Ahmed Gamal. I'm an IELTS expert trainer for about 7 years now for the IELTS test only. But generally, I've graduated from the Faculty of Education in 2010, and then I have another studies for the Faculty of Arts English Department and graduated in 2017. Between these two faculties, I have studied a translation diploma for about 2 years, graduated in 2013. Since 2011, I've worked 4 months through university as a language lecturer for different departments and different faculties for about 6 years till 2017. And then moving to the items of my working was the Ministry of Education. I'm a teacher of English there, and also I'm working as an English trainer for teachers till 2020. And in addition to that, I have an items of TO2, which is a trainer for trainers for teachers. Okay, how can they teach the teachers? How can they deal with teaching methodology and improving their language level two? Generally, I'm working for adults for about 13 years now, till 2011 until today. I'm teaching English for adults, and I've worked with different techniques, different items. And there are other sub items like working for the Maritime Institute for teaching the students how to get the TOEFL degree items for the IBT tests and everything about it. So throughout this, my career history, I've taught about more than 10,000 students, and more than we can say the number of hours exaggerated about 20,000 hours throughout these items. So this is just a part of my experience that you are going to be benefited from it, trying to give you a lot of advice and techniques to use language to improve your level and to get the score in an easy way, direct one, without getting round or feeling complex. So moving to the next part, speak about the item of IELTS. And the question is, why IELTS? This is a question that all of us think about when you try to have a kind of a proud scholarship out of your country, thinking about these items, you found that the IELTS is a main condition to travel. Or when you're thinking about the IELTS for immigration, you found that immigration to Canada, for example, or to Australia, or some European countries, you found that the IELTS is a fixed conditions. Whatever the score is, but the IELTS is a fixed condition. So why IELTS? First, the IELTS is an abbreviation or an acronym for a word which is in International English Language Testing System. This exam has been done by Cambridge University in comparison with the CEFR, the Common European Language Center, in order to measure the language level of the students around the world and people who are seeking to deal with items requiring language or English language specifically. So this test has been established to measure the level of the students around the world and to know their level of language. It is considered one of the highest English language testing items around the world in order to give an accurate measurements for the candidate's level of language. Now, when we speak now with each other, about 3.5 million examinee around the world joining the test per year. And what makes it very important and give it a high grade or a high recommendation that this test is being compromised, or this test is being recommended for about 11,000 employers, university schools, immigration bodies, and even governments around the world. And that's why it is totally very and extensive and sorry intensively required around the world. So you're gonna find it in every place, and that's why the IELTS is considered the main or the best certificate for the proficiency of language level of yours to provide it for any place around the world to study or to immigrate or something like that. So moving to the next part and speaking about the IELTS itself, and speaking about the next items, which is the IELTS usage. Why we need the IELTS. We have already mentioned that before by the number of about 11,000 places around the world are recommended the IELTS. So we use the IELTS in case of I'm searching for a high career items or developing my career job. So access to global employment opportunities, which means that you can find a better opportunity of getting a higher job work in a national or even international companies around the world. Like if we're speaking about Egypt, the people who are trying to travel to the UAE, for example, are searching for IELTS score which is starting from 7 to 8.5 to found a place in these multi-international countries founding date and to get a payment or higher payment rather than the one they get now. The other usage for the IELTS, it's an items that give you a higher education and study program or programs overseas, because IELTS improve your items of language and giving an accurate level of language for yours and so on. All the universities and institutions, education institutions around the world are recommended the IELTS because they found it's authentic part or authentic test that give them the measurement, the actual measurements of yours in language level. So if you're going to search for a study programs abroad, or even inside Egypt or outside Egypt, you're gonna find the IELTS is main condition. The next items is for the language proficiency. What if I'm an English teacher, for example, so I need the IELTS in order to prove myself and prove to my students that I have a high level of language from C1 or C2 level. That means me an expert of language and I can deal with it in a minute way. So we found now, or we know now, how IELTS is important and the usage of it and the total number of the IELTS candidates each year and why we need the IELTS study programs that we have now. Our program of study for the IELTS is divided into 2+1 items. What is 2+1? We provide an English language camp course, which is an intensive course. We're discussing the item of all the items language for the main skills and sub skills. In addition to the IELTS preparation program or camp that we provided it to introduce the language, the test techniques and parts and how can you deal with it in order to achieve your score. But not all of you are going to join these 2+1 because if you are going to travel abroad, for example, and you need to score about 5.5, and if you have done our placement test after this course or after this session and found that your level is a P1 level, so you don't need to work over your language because your level of P1 is equal to the 5 or 5.5 that you are seeking for. But if you are seeking for a 7 or 7 plus and your level is P1, in this case, you will join the camp course for language because we need to improve your language skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing. This is the main skills in addition to the sub skill, which is items of grammar, vocabulary, testing items, and all of these parts. So this is going to be the first part, and then you're going to join the IELTS items in a one course, not two courses. So if my level of language is equal to the target score, you are going to join directly the IELTS prep camp. But if not, you are going to have the full package, which is the language camp first, in addition to the IELTS camp next. So how is that language camp is and what are the items? I've mentioned that we're working on two items. First, the main skills, which is listening, speaking, reading, writing. We need to improve your main skills because these are the skills that this is going to measure already. So we have to develop it. We develop it through different items and different activities. For example, starting with the listening, we have a daily training, a day-by-day training over listening stuff and listening for videos, and there will be a session-by-session listening items too, by using a very frequent techniques, which is intensive listening and extensive listening. The intensive items dealing with items of having a questions and audio and try to listen to the audio and try to answer the questions. So it dealing with the questioning items and the keywords of the questions and how can you get the answers. In addition to the extensive one dealing with in order to listen for general, gaining more information in addition to more vocabularies, providing your lesson proficiency and knowing the differences between the dialects. You're going to listen for different dialects, American, British, and so on. For the item of listening, while you are listening, you are gonna choose a chance to develop your speaking too. So in addition to listening, gonna match a speaking item, there is a day-by-day speaking items, in addition session-by-session speaking items. What makes a speaking profession for us very special that we put a feedback for the speaking day by day, try to fix your problems that we have inside your speaking, and try to move on a fixed items, not to move in general. So we're gonna find some problems related with pronunciation or problems with grammar or problems related with lexical resources. We're gonna focus over every one of them alone until to fix it and moving to the next one. For the reading and the writing, there will be also a kind of same action of the listening, intensive and extensive items for reading. And we already have a match between the reading and writings that you're going to read and summarize and writing paragraph over what you have read using the new vocabularies and also the structures and information that you have read. The writing items you are going to learn with us how can you build a correct sentence, how can you make a connection between the sentences, the punctuation items that you need in order to organize your speaking items, your writing items. In addition to that, you will have the items of a feedback about your mistakes, how can you avoid your mistakes in the next or the upcoming writing tasks. This is the first item relating with the four main skills. In addition to the main skills, we have the sub skills, which is the grammar, vocabulary, the question items, and the quiz items, which is the skill of exam. How can you solve an exam? How can you solve the questions? How can you be having an accurate items of solving this part of the sub skill? So first item of the grammar, you are going to be practice the grammar with me. We're going to explain point by point inside the grammar from a very low point to a very advanced point in order to know how to use the grammar from a simple point to a complex point. And there will be a supported question bank of grammar within each part of grammatical topic that we discuss. You will have a full question bank in order to solve a lot of exercise to fix and pinpoint these points of grammar into your brain to use it with your main skills, especially with the speaking and writing. In addition to that, we need to upgrade your level of vocabulary or elevate your level of vocabulary. So you're going to have some different kinds of vocabulary, academic vocabulary, general vocabulary, and the slang ones, which is the slang expressions, which we called it idioms, in order to have a very items of vocabulary. When you listen, you don't struggle with vocabulary. When you read, you don't struggle with vocabulary. When you speak or you write, you don't memorize because you will have already the enough vocabulary to speak and to write too. The questions is an important skill. It's not only to have some feedback, but how can you deal with a question? So inside the question bank will give you several kind of questions. For example, for the listening part, you will have several kind of questions like multiple choice questions, completion questions, yes or no questions. So we are going to discuss with each other how can you deal with a question with the best techniques of dealing with a question, and that's gonna give you an upper hand in the training over the test. We're not struggling with the techniques of the question because you've already dealt with it in the camp part. And also there will be an items of regular quizzes after each 2 weeks of the course in order to know where is your level stand on. If we're facing some problem with grammar, we have to fix it. If you're facing some problem with vocabulary, we have to fix it, and so on. So these feedback or mutual feedback, we have to do it in order to push you forward within every part. So this is the items of the camp of the language. After you finish it, you are going to join the item of the IELTS. And the items are lasting for about 2 months and a half. Through these 2 months and a half, you will start with dealing with listening items. We're going to have a scooping part over each question. So we're going to deal with a question by question. And then we're going to have a general scooping over a real test. We're going to solve some real tests with each other inside sessions in order to have the sense of the test actually. In addition to that, you will have some mock test after you finish it, lasting for about 30 exam over the listening only. The same for the reading. After we finish the listening, we're going to start the reading. We're going to have a scooping for the question of the reading, a question by question, and then we have a real test items inside the session. And after we finish, you'll have the same number of the listening to about 30 mock exam over reading totally. In addition to that, at the same time, we are going to practice item speaking. So with the sessions of listening and session of reading, you will have a training over the speaking items. We're going to have a training over the 3 parts, speaking part by part, not with the full part. You're going to have a training over part 1, the personal part. What is the vocabulary we can use? What kind of question that we have? What's the perfect answer? And what's the aspects that we have to deal with in order to have a good speaking items. After the first part, we're going to move to the next part, which is a cue card. How can we use a cue card? How can we control our time? How can we control the questions and everything about it? And having a good vocabulary structure, good sentence structure, and pronunciation structure too. And lastly, we're going to have the parts which is extended question part over the cue card, having the same techniques. After we finish all of that, we will be already finished the listening and reading part. So we're going to go for the writing part. With the writing part, we're going to have a main focus of the writing techniques. How can we build the sentence structure, knowing different kinds of structure of sentence, compound, complex, and compound, complex sentence structure, and the cohesive divides that we use, the difference between conjunctions and transitions, the different items of the advancing grammatical, and the main mistakes that a lot of examinee committed within their test in the writing part. And then we're going to deal with the question types of task 2 and task 1. With task 2, how can we build an essay, the introduction paragraph, how can you do the paraphrasing items and thesis statement, developing examples, reasoning, all of these items. We're going to do it session by session, do main examples and some examples with each other inside sessions, and a lot of mock items, reaching to 20 mock tests over the writing part for task 1 or task 2. After we finish the full course, you will have a mock test for free at the end with each other and free feedback too. And in addition to that, we have a genuine items that we have created for our course. For example, if you have finished your course and you didn't join the test or reserve the test, and you are going to reserve it after a while, so we are introducing for you 2 items that are going to be available after you finish the course directly. The first one of them is a 6-month follow-up. The 6-month follow-up, through this 6 month, I'll give you a week by week exercising item to solve it. For example, the first week will be a listening exercise. The second week will be a reading exercise. The third week will be a writing exercise. The fourth week will be a speaking exercise. And at the end of each month, you will have a free mock test, okay? Online mock test. You will do it for free and free feedback for it. That lasting for 6 months until you already get your test and get your band score, inshallah. The additional items that we add to is a consulting service. If you have a question about the band score, a question about the techniques, a question about the problem, a question about some obstacles that you face, you can send your question directly to us on WhatsApp or on our messenger of the page. And within about 48 hours, you will have a full answer of your question in order to improve your items. So today we're going to speak about a very important item, which is the structure of the test. And as you see here, we have 4 kinds of the IELTS test. The first one of them is the item of the test items, the 2 main modules that a lot of people around the world are getting it, which is the academic one and the general one. But there are other two modules, which are the items of UK visa test and life skill, which is listening and speaking test only. So let's speaking about the main structure of test. The test consists of four main items: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Why I don't write speaking generally with listening? Because the speaking is a part about the test. You're gonna have the speaking parts before the test or after the test, maybe on the same day or day after or day before. So the listening part is a test consists of 30 minutes test. It consists of four sections. Each section contains 10 questions. So you have 40 questions. Each questions is for a degree, so it's a 40 degree. The reading part is about a 60-minute test, which is contain three sections. By the way, there is a difference between the general and academic in this part, because in the general part you are gonna have three passages, but into this is the academic part. Into general part you're gonna have five passages, but the passages of part one and part two are the same passage, but it is gonna be divided into two parts. The writing part also, there is a difference between the general and academic, because task 2 will be the same for both, write an essay, but task 1 for the general will be to write a letter, task 1 for the academic is to write a report. It's a part that lasted for 60 minutes. We have two tasks, task 1 and task 2. The last part is a speaking part that we said or mentioned before. It's a depart part from the main test. It's lasted for 15 minutes. It's a test that consists of three main parts. The first part, personal questions around yourself. The second part, a cue card relating to a topic. And the last part is an extension questions relating to the cue card topics that you have already spoken about it before. Okay, so let's go for private items. We only have this part inside our course. How we evaluate your speaking, how we evaluate the speaking items. The speaking item, I can say that I'm just listening for you. I'm trying to give you a score, but I'll give you how we are already measuring your score. We are measuring your score according to four test criteria that are already existing on the internet, by the way, which is fluency, coherence, lexical resources, grammatical accuracy, and pronunciation. But how can I get a score? And what's the problems that I focus on and try to solve it throughout the course? First, for the items of fluency and coherence, I see the level of hesitance. How many? A lot of it, okay? And then we try to solve this problem within time. In addition to hesitance, there is an item of silence. For example, you may stay silent for a while, try to remember a word, try to remember an idea. This is an item, a level of hesitance and silence. The second item is the item of the length of your answer. So how much time do you consume to answer question? Are you just saying for about 10 seconds and stop? So that's a very short item. That means that your fluency is so low. It's about 20 seconds or higher than that, maybe from 20 to 40. That's going to be a good and a good one. But if you're consuming a whole minute, it's going to be perfect. The second or the third item is using connectors, whatever it is, maybe a conjunction or it is maybe a transition. But to use a conjunction, not too much, not too low, but you have a conjunction between your items or a transition between your sentences to make your sentences more coherent and more unity for the topic. The second part is your lexical resources. First, I focus on the variety of your lexical resources. What does it mean by variety? Using noun, verb, adjective, adverb, phrasal, gerund, all of these variety of language resources and derivatives. In addition, the collocation idioms. Do you use a collocation items? Collocation like using two words coming to each other, like take a seat, for example. That's a collocation. Or idioms, the general expressions that we use inside slang language, like elephant in the room, like kaka tongue, like takes a bull by the horns. Are you using this and using it effectively or not? And the last item is paraphrasing, which is not to repeat your vocabulary rot and not to repeat the questions even the examiner asked you to. To use synonyms, antonyms, or not. To use it effectively or not. The next item is a grammar accuracy, and here we're going to look first at the variety. Are you using one structure or different structures? You may use one tense or two tenses. Okay, it's not important to use a lot of tenses, but to use a tense in one structure, only active or use for passive. Use an advanced rule like if conditions or something like that or not. And this is the second part, the complexity, the high level of items. Use gerund items, participle phrase, or sometimes maybe a present participle phrase or a past participle phrase. To use items of different kind of sentence like complex sentence and compound sentence. To use items like adjective clause, noun clause, adverb clause. To use all of these items or not. And finally, your mistakes. The less you commit mistakes, the higher score of grammar will be. So be careful of your grammar in order not to commit a lot of mistakes. And by the way, into the part of writing, we will have a full file dealing with the grammatical mistakes, the famous grammatical mistakes. Lastly, the item of pronunciation. So with pronunciation, you have to pronounce your words clearly, wherever the accent is. The accent is not a must here, but if you have an accent, that's going to be better. So if you speaking American accent, speaking British accent, that's going to be good. But if not, don't be worried, okay? Because we don't need the accent. We just need a clear pronunciation of the word. And be careful of the stress of the word, okay? Because don't stress all the words. Don't do that. That's going to be totally wrong. And if you are wiring or knowing the stress of the items, so it's going to be so easy to do the link rules to make a link between the words. Okay, that makes it easy for you and makes it as a higher level of speaking. And finally, the item of intonation. Are you speaking in one tune or vary your intonation according to the sentence type, statement, interrogative, or something like that? So as you see, each part of this is we bought a score from 0 to 3. So the three of them are going to give me a score of 9. We're going to get the score of 9 of the 4 criteria and divide it over 4, which gives me your final score. We do that with you from session to session in order to measure your score. And then we focus on the main points that you commit mistakes on. So maybe I have a very big problem with hesitance. I need that hesitance I got, for example, 1 each time. So the fluency is harmed with this score. So we have to work in hesitance for a while. I will not look for any other items until we already get rid of hesitance. After that, we found that there is a problem. Still, there is a problem with grammar, for example. So we're going to focus on grammar. Then we're going to have a problem with pronunciations, and we're going to focus on pronunciation. So we do that in order to fix a problem part by part. If we focus on all, it's going to be so tough. So this is how can we work on the item of speaking. As I mentioned again, there will be a daily speaking items, and this daily speaking will having an immediate correction. We're going to correct your grammatical mistakes. We're going to correct your vocabulary mistakes. We're going to correct your pronunciation mistakes. Okay. In addition to speaking from session to session, each one of you will have 3 minutes to speak about a topic, and then we're going to mention these topics for you and support it with the vocabulary to study it to upgrade your vocabulary level 2. So that's all for our training. That's all for our course. So if you are interested in our course and interested in our training and found it that it can give you what you need for scoring items, so you can contact us through our email, itshow2020@gmail.com, or through our social media, Facebook, items, IELTS or you can call us on our WhatsApp or through the WhatsApp items on our page. That's all for you. Thanks for your time and thanks for hearing me. And I hope that all of you can achieve what you need. Thank you. Goodbye.